I'm going to do some predictions about China now. Now, these are a continuation again from earlier predictions that I made on my website back in 2012 and 2014. I usually give some predictions every year, but I'm going to reference these ones first because a lot of these have happened, but also since that, they seem to suggest to me some of the things that might happen. And I'll give you my psychic insights into what I believe is going to happen in China. Now, at the time of making these predictions, of course, everybody was scrambling to do business with China. And I said that this would go wrong, that there would be a conflict between China and America over economics. You can read this on my website in the China section. And you can check them on archives if you want to check how and when I made these. But I made these predictions in 2012. And I talked about there being a number of environmental catastrophes in China. That's not happened yet. But these would kind of set a fuse to some of the events as a sort of a trigger point. So I believe something will happen that might cause a problem. At that time, I was talking about a nuclear power station going up in China. And actually, it happened in Japan during the tsunami in Japan. So I might have been misseeing something there. China, Japan, okay, they're miles apart, totally different nations, but you know, you could understand a person could get a little bit confused. But anyway, that's me making excuses for myself. But you know, there's going to be, mainly in China, I've been predicting for a long time, an absolute economic catastrophe in terms that China's will have a complete downturn. Now, sorry, I'm always seem to be making sort of bad predictions for the world. You know, everybody says, oh, they're all so miserable. But when you look at the news, news is usually pretty bad. It's not the good things. Good things happen in the world as well. But anyway, looking at the China thing, there's going to be growing conflicts in China between China and the West. Now, I did feel that Russia would come to the aid of China when this happens, that there would be a lot of trading deals between China and Russia, and maybe a coalition of some sort, both economic and maybe military in the future, because America's going to be building up its military arsenal. China's only has a fraction of what America has, and I feel there will be some moves in that direction. That's not hugely bad news, you know, that is just a structural thing that's going to happen, a coalition between the two countries in that respect. But internally, China's going to have some major problems, because I have been predicting for a long time that people will stop buying Chinese, that China will, because of this, have an economic problem, a major economic problem. It won't find the markets. And, you know, countries outside of China will start remanufacturing. We've seen this with the elections in America in 2017 when I'm making this. I'm making this prediction on the, look at my dates, 10th of March 2017. Now, we've already seen major problems in America towards China. Trump don't like China, don't like Chinese manufacturing. Once manufacturing brought back to America, I reckon the same thing's going to happen in Britain as we leave Brexit. We're going to be looking back again to manufacturing a lot of our own stuff. I mean, all the cheap stuff's all be made in China, all the good stuff's be made in Germany. So Germany's happy to manufacture, but everybody else can't, you know. So I think there's going to be a complete change in the way the world does things. It's an anti-globalization that's happening around the world. This has become self-evident now, but back when I made these earlier predictions in 2012 and 2013, that people weren't think globalization was great. Everybody loved it. You know, they're lining their pockets. But it don't work because they don't pay their taxes and nations fall because of it. So anyway, there's going to be some flashpoints. Because of this, once the economics start to go wrong in China, I've predicted, I just need to look at my notes again here, I've got the screen in front of me. I've talked about a flashpoint in Hong Kong, and there could be another flashpoint actually in Mongolia of all places, you know. It's like, what I think, no, I don't know if I've exactly got that right, but this is what I was kind of seeing at the time, and I still keep getting a nagging feeling about this. That it's like one of the obscure provinces in China that triggers it all. They start they become the sort of catalyst for change. Because as the economics start to fall apart in China, the people will rise up, and I believe there will be another revolution in China similar to what we were seeing in Tiananmen Square. except this time it will work, and people will be crying for democracy. Now, there's another strange thing that we have with this, because my wife Jane has had some of the family of Sun Yat-sen come to her, who people won't know who that is, most Westerners, but they were he was a great Chinese philosopher who, well, politician really, and who had a different model for China. A model for China that was more democratic. And these are the times before Mao, right? And he lived in Hawaii, and he came to America and learned about American democracy and saw a way of adapting Western democracy for China. He had a completely different model. He was the father of modern China in many ways. But Sun Yat-sen's philosophy, I believe, will become a model for a new China. I believe that the Chinese, and we've been talking to the spirit world about this, or Jane certainly has, but I've also sensed the same feeling, that there is going to be in China a relook to the past. And this time they're going to look back to the path they didn't take. And that's the Sun Yat-sen's model for China. A new democracy will appear in China, and China will become a better place because of this. It will be triggered, though, by an economic fall, an economic collapse, because China in many ways has lost its soul. It was stripped out by Mao. The Cultural Revolution threw away all that great history that he saw as a great burden upon the country. They couldn't modernise because of the conservatism of the past. But the people, the soul comes back again, and that great Chinese tradition, that great Chinese soul, I feel, will bring have a rebirth, basically. And China will become a country of a lot deeper spirituality because of this. Although, obviously, a revolution, as I'm kind of predicting here, a kind of a revolution. I don't think it's going to be, it's not going to be warring people on the streets in the same way it was with the Chinese Revolution before. This is going to be a quieter revolution, but it will be a revolution nonetheless, and it will be some bloodshed with this, because, there has to be a force for change. But a new democracy will appear in China, which will create a much better country, albeit China becoming a much poorer country than it is at present. Much, much poorer. But I feel that the people of China will have a re-look at things, and re-look at the way they live their lives and their society. Less materialism. And through this also, I feel that Tibet will ultimately be given a chance again, given more autonomy, given a chance to become its own province more, and eventually become a country in its own right in the years ahead. And Tibet will become almost like a national park for the world. It will become a country which will devote itself back to religion again, and it will be a place where people will flock to learn spirituality. So, China, it's time for democracy. And I feel, although we're going to see a lot of difficulties in China, we're going to see the old traditions being swept away, we're going to see the old order coming, but there can come out of this, I believe, better times. And there you go. Let's hope for the best for China. It's going to be a bumpy ride. Obviously, it will cause tremendous problems in terms of the world's economy. I think over the next 3 years, we're going to have some really rocky ride in lots of ways, because once the money situation goes wrong, we've globalized, so we all suffer. And probably just as well, because it takes collective will to create peace in the world now. And I think the problems are bigger than countries, so we all have to solve it together. This will ultimately bring a coming together in the world. I remember years and years ago, it would be back in about 1984, sitting with a trance medium who was extremely good, and they used to come through him. His guide used to speak through him, and I asked a lot of questions about the future of the world. I asked about the future of the Middle East. I asked about China. Some of these things have influenced me now in a way. But I also asked him, won't the world fall to pieces with all these troubles, And his answer was, the problems of the world, particularly at that time, he said in 1984, he said about the environment will be the main problem that everybody will bring people together, because we can't solve it as one nation, and this will bring the world together to have to solve problems. More communications, more democracy, more dialogue, because we've got problems we can't solve on our own. This will be the same with the environment, this will be the same with economics, this will be the same with mass migration. We've got global problems that will need global solutions. And you know, I've digressed a little bit from where I'm talking with China here, but you know, China will be part of the solution rather than part of the problem, I feel, in the future. Jane and I now do our spiritual work for our foundation. All the profits that come from things like our conferences and theatres and workshops and all those exciting things now go into this foundation, which ultimately has the long-term plan of building centres in the UK and maybe around the world one day. But meanwhile, we've been doing a lot of direct spiritual work with it. We've been going out, feeding people in India, giving to the destitute, giving to beggars. We've helped feed schools, helped orphanages, and we've even given cows to older people that have no other form of income. So mediumship can change your life, but it can also help people directly in the world. So go to the links at the end and find out all about what Jane and I are trying to do. And you can do a lot just by sharing these videos on social media. Help us get the word out. Help us to do something really good in this world. Click on this picture of me to subscribe to our channel and see all of our latest videos as soon as they're published. Or click on this next video for more of our stuff.